My boss fired me, cut my sick kid's insurance. After 15 years of grinding, said, "We're not responsible for your son," and that if I worked harder, he wouldn't be suffering. So I went nuclear. Sup, Reddit? You know what's worse than getting fired while your kid's fighting cancer? Getting fired by a guy who couldn't pronounce half the regulations he was about to violate without you there to stop him. I, 41 male, spent 15 years as a quality systems specialist at a mid-sized pharmaceutical manufacturer called Meridian Biotech. Not the sexy part of pharma, where they discover miracle cures. The boring part where someone makes sure production batches don't kill people and FDA inspectors don't shut down operations. That someone was me. 15 years of institutional knowledge that kept the company from bleeding money or making headlines. Pattern recognition that caught problems before they became disasters. The meeting invite showed up on a Thursday morning in October. Subject line, organizational transition discussion. No agenda, no context, just a 30-minute block in conference room B with my name, Victor's name, and someone from HR I'd never met named Margaret. I knew exactly what it meant. Same way you know a relationship's ending before anyone says the words out loud. You feel it in the shift. The way your boss stops including you in planning emails. The way conversations pause when you walk into the break room. The sudden interest in documenting your processes that nobody cared about when things were running smooth. I'd felt it building for 6 weeks. Ever since Victor hired Ethan, 28 years old, MBA from somewhere impressive he mentioned in every conversation. Brought in as Director of Quality Innovation, which was corporate speak for, "We're replacing you but need a transition period, so nothing explodes immediately." Kid had zero pharmaceutical experience. Came from medical device consulting. Walked around the facility with a tablet, like he was cataloging everything wrong with a condemned building. Taking notes nobody asked for about legacy friction points and optimization opportunities. Translation? He thought 15 years of preventing disasters was the same thing as being stuck in the past. The meeting started 9 minutes late because Victor was on another call he deemed more important. When he finally showed up, he didn't apologize. Just sat down, adjusted his overpriced watch, and slid a folder across the table without making eye contact. "Connor, we're restructuring our quality systems approach to align with modern operational efficiency standards. Your role is being eliminated as part of this strategic realignment." I didn't touch the folder, just looked at him. Eliminated. That's the word you're using. It's a reduction in workforce, nothing personal. The industry's changing, and we need different skill sets going forward. Victor pulled out his phone, checked an email while I was sitting there processing the fact that I'd just been fired. Didn't even have the courtesy to maintain eye contact during the conversation he'd scheduled to destroy my livelihood. "Different skill sets," I said. "Like what? Knowing how to use PowerPoint? Because that's about all Ethan's brought to the table so far." Victor's jaw tightened, set his phone down with deliberate slowness. Ethan brings strategic vision and data-driven methodology that align with where this company needs to go. Your approach worked fine when we were smaller, but we're scaling now. We need systems that don't depend on one person's memory. My memory is the only thing that's kept this place from failing inspections for the last 5 years. But sure, scale past that. See what happens. That's exactly the kind of attitude that makes this decision easier. You've been resistant to every modernization initiative we've proposed. Every time we try to implement new systems, you find reasons why they won't work instead of figuring out how to make them work. I find reasons they won't work because they won't work. There's a difference between modernization and buying expensive software that doesn't understand how pharmaceutical quality actually functions. Victor leaned back in his chair, looked at me like I was a problem he was relieved to finally solve. "This conversation is over. Your severance package is in the folder. 3-month salary, benefits through the end of the month. We'll need your badge and access credentials before you leave today. Margaret will walk you through the exit process." I didn't move, just looked at him. "My son's in cancer treatment." Victor's expression didn't change. "I understand you have things going on at home, but the company isn't responsible for your personal situation. If you'd put this same energy into adapting instead of resisting change, you wouldn't be in this position." He didn't say Liam's name. He didn't have to. That's what he meant. Margaret sat there documenting everything on her laptop, probably covering the company's tail for the lawsuit that wasn't coming, because I didn't have the time or money to fight them. My son Liam had been diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia 9 weeks ago. He was 7. Treatment was running about $18,000 monthly after insurance. Didn't count Evelyn's lost work time or the experimental therapy his oncologist wanted that wasn't fully covered. I needed this job. They knew it. Did it anyway. What skill sets does Ethan have that I don't? I asked. Kept my voice level. Didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. Victor shifted in his seat. He brings fresh perspective on data-driven quality management and automated compliance tracking. Fresh perspective. He's been here 6 weeks, hasn't run a single validation protocol or prepped a single FDA submission. Doesn't know that batch 4721's documentation looks different because we had to hand file it during the server migration in 2019, or that our environmental monitoring schedule shifts in January because the HVAC system runs different airflow patterns during winter, and we adjusted our sampling points to match. Doesn't know any of it. That's why we're implementing new documentation systems that don't rely on individual knowledge. Individual knowledge is the only thing standing between you and a warning letter. But sure, automate it. See what happens. Victor's jaw tightened. He didn't like getting talked back to, especially not in front of HR. We're done here. I stood up. Didn't argue. Didn't beg. Just picked up the folder and walked to the door. Margaret followed me out to process the exit paperwork. We sat in a small conference room while she slid forms across the table like a menu. Coverage ends on the last day of the month, she said, not making eye contact. If you want to continue insurance through Cobra, the premium will be $2,140 monthly. There's information in your packet. $2,140 per month. For insurance, I'd been paying $380 for as an employee. Liam's next chemo session was in 11 days. His anti-nausea medication refill was due in 6. I signed the forms, handed over my badge and access card. 15 years of institutional memory walked out behind me in a body they'd just made disposable. Ethan was standing near the production floor entrance when I passed, probably positioning himself to ask questions the moment I was gone. He nodded at me. Not respectful, not sympathetic, just acknowledging my existence the way you'd nod at someone holding a door open. I didn't nod back, just kept walking, because engaging with him would have required energy I needed to save for the conversation I was about to have with my parents. I called my dad from the parking lot, told him what happened, tried to keep it factual, tried to keep emotion out of it. They fired you? Now? With Liam in treatment? They called it a workforce reduction. My goodness, Connor. How are you going to pay for his care? I need to borrow money, just until I find something else. Liam's medication alone is going to run us thousands out of pocket now. Silence on the other end. The kind that tells you everything before words do. Connor, your mother and I have been talking. We love Liam. You know that. But we can't keep enabling your poor planning. You should have had backup plans. Should have been networking instead of staying comfortable in one company for 15 years. Dad, I'm not asking you to enable anything. I'm asking for help paying for your grandson's cancer treatment. And what happens next time? What happens when you get let go again because you refuse to adapt? We give you more money? Keep funding your resistance to change? Your brother Julian has never asked us for a dime. Built his career smart, made partner young, has security. That's what happens when you think ahead instead of just reacting. Liam's 7 years old with leukemia. This isn't about career planning. It's exactly about career planning. If you'd made better choices, you wouldn't be in this position. Julian wouldn't be. You want to know what he'd do? He'd already have savings, already have connections, already have options. Not calling his parents begging for handouts while his son's sick. The word begging landed exactly how he meant it to. I'm not begging. I'm asking my parents to help their grandson get through cancer treatment. And we're telling you that the best help we can give you is tough love. You need to figure this out yourself. Learn from it. Stop depending on other people to rescue you from situations you should have prepared for. That's what being a man is, Connor. That's what being a father is. Not making excuses. Not calling us every time things get hard. I sat there in my truck, phone pressed to my ear, watching other people leave work like it was just another Thursday. You're really saying no. We're saying you need to grow up. Stand on your own feet. Be the father Liam needs instead of the one who runs to his parents when things get difficult. You'll thank us for this someday. I hung up. Didn't argue. Didn't beg. Just ended the call and sat there for a while. That night, I called my friend Tony. We'd been tight since before careers and mortgages and all the other stuff that turns people into calendar invites. I didn't give him the full speech. Just the facts. I got cut. Coverage died. Parents refused to help. Chemo doesn't pause for family drama. And the pharmacy already wanted cash. Tony didn't ask for a breakdown or a promise or a pity performance. He just said, text me the number. 10 minutes later, Evelyn forwarded me a screenshot. $15,000 pending in her account. No contract. No, pay me back by Friday. Just a note that said, for Liam. Handle the rest later. 2 days later, the hospital portal showed coverage pending verification. I was trying to refill Liam's anti-nausea medication when the pharmacist looked up from her screen with that apologetic expression healthcare workers develop when they're about to deliver bad news they didn't cause. Your insurance authorization isn't going through. It's showing your coverage ended on the 31st. I can't release the prescription without a new authorization or payment upfront. How much? $340 for a 30-day supply. I stood there at the pharmacy counter, other people waiting behind me, holding a prescription for medication that kept my 7-year-old from throwing up 12 times a day during chemo. $340 for pills. Because Victor decided I wasn't adapting fast enough, and my parents decided Liam's cancer was a teaching moment about personal responsibility. I paid it with Tony's money, walked out to my truck with a paper bag containing pills that cost more than our weekly grocery budget. Here's what pharmaceutical quality systems actually look like when you strip away the corporate presentations and consultant reports. It's not dashboards. It's not automated alerts. It's pattern recognition built from thousands of hours watching how things break in ways that don't show up in databases until it's too late to fix them without hemorrhaging money or triggering regulatory action. Take our environmental monitoring program. On paper, it was simple. Sample air and surfaces in production areas. Test for microbial contamination. Document results. File reports quarterly. Any first-year quality tech could run the procedures. But knowing when to escalate a borderline result before it became a trend that forced a full investigation? That took years of seeing patterns that didn't exist in any procedure document. Like when sampler station 7 in the aseptic filling suite would occasionally spike to 4 CFU instead of its normal 0 to 1 range. Technically still passing. Technically not requiring action. But I'd learned over 8 years that every time Station 7 spiked in October, it meant the door seal on the personnel airlock was starting to fail, because the HVAC system transitioned to winter mode and created subtle pressure differentials that stressed the gasket. If you caught it then and scheduled maintenance, the seal would get replaced during planned downtime. If you ignored it because the number was still green on the dashboard, you'd get a full contamination event in December that would shut down production for 3 days and cost about $400,000 in lost batches and remediation. Ethan didn't know this. Neither did Victor. Neither did any system they were about to implement. They thought quality management was following procedures. I knew it was preventing the situations where procedures don't help. 17 days after I walked out, my phone rang at 11:30 p.m. Former colleague, guy named Hassan, who worked in validation. Connor, man, I know you're not here anymore, but I gotta ask you something. What's up? We've got a deviation investigation on batch 7821. Impurity spike in the HPLC results. Ethan's freaking out because he can't find the root cause, and we're 3 days from the filing deadline for the batch record. What's the impurity profile look like? Single peak at 3.2 minutes. Only showed up in the second aliquot. I closed my eyes. Knew exactly what it was without even seeing the data. It's the sampling syringe. You're using the new ones from the vendor switchover in August. They have a different plunger material that leaches a compound when exposed to the mobile phase we use. It's not a real impurity. It's an artifact. How the heck do you know that? Because I caught it during qualification testing on the new syringes and documented it in a memo to procurement. Told them we needed to stick with the original vendor. They switched anyway to save money. The workaround is to condition the syringe with 3 rinses of mobile phase before pulling the sample. It's in my email archive from August 12th. Silence on the other end. Then, Ethan deleted all your archived emails when he took over your accounts. Said they were legacy documentation that wasn't compliant with the new system structure. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Hassan understood what that meant. We're screwed, aren't we? They are now. He hung up. I sat there in my living room, Liam asleep upstairs after a brutal chemo session that afternoon, and realized they weren't going to learn. They'd keep breaking things and scrambling to fix them without connecting the dots. The calls kept coming. Different people. Same pattern. Equipment failing in ways that made no sense to Ethan, but perfect sense to me. I helped when I could. Kept answering late-night calls from people I'd trained. But I started documenting every question, every gap, every problem that existed because they deleted institutional memory. Started building a pattern map of everything they didn't know they'd lost, which meant I could either watch them fail from a distance, or I could build something they'd eventually need badly enough to pay for. I chose the second option. The contact came from someone I barely remembered meeting, Kira. We'd crossed paths at a pharmaceutical compliance conference in Phoenix 4 years back. One of those industry events where everyone pretends to network but mostly just complains about FDA inspection horror stories over moderately terrible hotel service. She'd been running a small regulatory software startup at the time, maybe 9 or 10 people, focused on helping biotech companies navigate FDA submissions without hiring full-time quality departments they couldn't afford. Her message came through LinkedIn. 2 sentences. You once said that quality systems fail because companies track outcomes instead of patterns. Are you still thinking about that? I let it sit for 36 hours. Not because I wasn't interested, because I was done giving away free expertise to people who'd ignore it until it became an emergency. But Kira didn't send a follow-up message asking if I'd seen the first one. Instead, she left a voice note. I don't need your resume, Connor. I need your brain. Coffee sometime this week if you're available. First time in months, someone had asked for what I actually offered instead of what they thought I should provide. We met at a place called Ironclad Coffee. No laptop, no pitch deck. Just talking about why pharma companies kept failing audits despite having more software than ever. 2 weeks later, I was helping her build Nexaqual. Not as an employee, just showing up twice a week to solve problems nobody else was tackling. The concept was simple. Track pattern changes in how people work before those changes become compliance failures. Notice when someone who files reports Tuesday starts filing them Friday. That's not laziness. That's drowning. Catch it early. Prevent the disaster. Took us 4 months to build a working prototype. Tested it with 3 biotech companies struggling with FDA pressure. Helios Biologics was the proof point. 22 days into their pilot, Nexaqual flagged their quality manager's documentation patterns shifting. She was abbreviating deviation justifications because she was training new techs and didn't have time for detailed narratives. 31 days before their FDA inspection, they fixed it, passed the audit, saved $340,000 in potential penalties, signed the contract before the pilot ended. Word spread through quality directors at conferences, regulatory consultants making quiet recommendations. Companies desperate for something that actually worked. 8 months after I walked out of Meridian, they showed up in our inquiry queue. A demo request from a pharmaceutical company whose domain name I recognized immediately. They didn't identify themselves in the form, just listed their industry as generic biologics manufacturing and marked the request as urgent, FDA inspection scheduled Q1. I knew it was them. Knew it was Meridian before I even saw the callback number. They were drowning, and they didn't even know they were about to call the person they'd fired for a life raft. The demo call happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I didn't join. Let Kira handle it. Professional distance, no personal reveals. Just a standard product walkthrough showing how Nexaqual detected quality system stress before it triggered regulatory action. I listened to the recording later that night after putting Liam to bed. His hair was mostly gone now. Chemo was hitting him hard, but the doctor said his numbers were responding. Small victories. We were measuring progress in blood counts and nausea-free mornings. The recording was exactly what I expected. Ethan's voice dominated the call, asking questions that proved he still didn't understand the difference between tracking outcomes and predicting failures. Interrupting Kira to explain how their new automated quality management system was already handling these issues. Except it clearly wasn't, because they wouldn't be on the call if their system was working. 20 minutes in, someone else spoke up. Female voice. Didn't recognize her. Probably someone from their quality team. Can this platform detect when someone's documentation patterns change due to workload stress? Like if they start abbreviating things or batching reports instead of doing them real time? Yes, Kira said. That's exactly what it's designed to catch. Small behavioral shifts that precede bigger compliance gaps. Silence on the other end. Then the same voice again, quieter. That would have been really useful about 3 months ago. I smiled at that. Dark humor. The kind you develop when you watch disasters unfold that could have been prevented if anyone had listened. Ethan cut back in, steering the conversation toward pricing and implementation timelines. All business. No acknowledgement of what the quality person had just implied. The contract came through 6 days later, buried in a batch approval process during what their procurement notes called an Emergency Quality Systems Upgrade Initiative. Corporate speak for panic buying. They approved 4 different software tools in one meeting. Project management platforms they'd never fully use. Communication tools that would duplicate systems they already had. And Nexaqual, listed under Quality Intelligence, Predictive Compliance Platform. Legal signed without reading past page 3. IT provisioned access without asking who built the underlying architecture. Accounting processed it as a standard SaaS subscription at $32,000 annually. Nobody asked where Nexaqual came from. They were too busy trying to stop the bleeding I'd predicted would start the moment they erased me from their system. Nexaqual went live at Meridian 3 weeks after contract signing, deployed across their 2 most vulnerable areas, deviation management, and batch record review. The platform immediately started catching problems before they became disasters. Making silent corrections, their dashboards never registered. 4 weeks later, Ethan sent a company-wide email celebrating their new proactive quality culture. He got copied on congratulations replies from Victor and 2 board members. Got mentioned in the quarterly update as an example of innovative leadership during transition periods. I read the email from my kitchen table while Liam worked on homework next to me. His hair was mostly gone. Second round of chemo hitting him hard. Mornings were worst. He'd wake up nauseous, barely able to keep down water. Evelyn had started keeping a calendar of good days versus bad days. Good days meant solid food and 1 or fewer vomiting episodes. Bad days were everything else. We averaged 3 good days per week. The calls kept coming. Different people. Same pattern. Equipment failing in ways that made no sense to Ethan, but perfect sense to me. I stopped helping. Started directing people back to their director of quality innovation. Let him earn that MBA. The next morning brought another development. Meridian's quality director requested a feature expansion call. They wanted to integrate Nexaqual with their CAPA system and extend coverage to their manufacturing execution systems. The justification was textbook panic. Their latest internal audit had revealed gaps in corrective action tracking that could trigger FDA observations. Gaps I would have caught months ago without needing an internal audit. The contract value jumped from $32,000 annually to $87,000. Kira forwarded me the expansion request with a 1-line message. They're hooked. Your call on timeline. I didn't expedite it. Let them wait like any other client. When the first real money cleared, I paid Tony back in full. He tried to refuse it. I didn't let him. Liam's treatment protocol shifted in December. More aggressive chemo. Harder on his system but necessary to fully eliminate the cancer cells. He lost more weight, stopped eating most foods, spent entire weekends sleeping or throwing up or both. I took him to appointments when Evelyn couldn't. Sat with him during infusions. Watched poison drip into his veins because it was the only thing keeping him alive. And every Monday morning at 6:15 a.m., my phone lit up with alerts from Nexaqual, Meridian's quality system stress indicators, behavioral drift patterns, documentation lag warnings. Small things, the kind automated systems ignore. But I saw them, tracked them, made adjustments when needed. The company that fired me while my son fought for his life was now dependent on a platform I built using the exact knowledge they'd thrown away. They were functioning because I was quietly maintaining it from a distance they'd never see. My parents called twice during this period, left voicemails both times, said they'd been thinking about us, asked how Liam was doing, never mentioned the money they'd refused, never acknowledged telling me to figure it out myself while their grandson needed cancer medication. I didn't call back. Deleted the voicemails without listening all the way through. Some bridges don't need rebuilding. They just need to stay burned. 14 months after walking out, I got a forwarded email from Kira. Subject line, Nexaqual Enterprise Expansion, Priority Request. Meridian wanted to deploy the platform company-wide. All quality systems. All manufacturing sites. Full integration with their document management and training systems. The justification memo was written by Ethan. He'd outlined how Nexaqual had reduced deviation investigations by 71%, improved audit outcomes, and created predictive capabilities that traditional quality management systems couldn't achieve. The contract value jumped to $164,000 annually. Ethan got promoted after Nexaqual quietly kept the place compliant, and Meridian did what corporations always do. Gave the win to the guy in the meetings, not the guy who built the system. He had no idea. I didn't feel angry reading that promotion announcement. Didn't feel cheated. Just felt the dark satisfaction of watching someone take credit for fixing a problem they'd created by breaking something that didn't need fixing in the first place. The expansion went smooth. Their IT team praised the integration documentation, said it was the cleanest vendor implementation they'd done in years. They had no idea I'd written that documentation the same way I used to train new quality staff. Clear instructions, anticipated questions, backup explanations for edge cases. Even in technical writing, I couldn't help but build systems that thought like I used to work. Liam's cancer went into remission in January. 17 months of treatment, hundreds of appointments, medical bills that would take years to clear. But his blood counts were clean. Scans were clear. Oncologists used the word recovered for the first time. I didn't call my parents to tell them. Didn't text. Didn't share the news. They'd chosen not to help when it mattered. They didn't get to celebrate now that the crisis had passed. Evelyn asked me about it once. Said maybe I should let them know. Let them be part of the good news after all the bad. I told her no. Some decisions are permanent. They made theirs when they told me to figure it out myself. I made mine by cutting them out entirely. 6 months later, Meridian's annual FDA inspection came back with 0 critical findings. First time in 8 years. Victor blasted out a company-wide email celebrating their strategic investments in quality innovation. Ethan got name-dropped like he personally wrestled the FDA into submission. Nexaqual didn't get mentioned. Neither did I. I read it in Kira's office while we were reviewing quarterly expansion opportunities. Closed it, moved on. But the universe had other plans. 3 weeks after that audit, my phone rang at 6:47 a.m. Sunday morning. Unknown number with a Meridian prefix. I let it go to voicemail. Listened to it while making coffee. Victor's voice. Tight. Controlled. The way he sounded when something had gone catastrophically wrong, and he was trying not to panic. Connor, it's Victor. I need you to call me back immediately. We have a situation that requires your expertise. It's urgent. Please call as soon as you get this. I deleted it. Made breakfast. Took Liam to his follow-up appointment. Came home. Didn't call back. Victor called again Monday morning. Left another message. More desperate this time. Tuesday brought an email. Subject line, critical quality emergency. Immediate response required. I opened it. Read it while eating lunch. Meridian had a contamination event in their primary aseptic filling line. Complete shutdown. 3 batches quarantined. FDA notified. Root cause investigation in progress, but they couldn't identify the source. Ethan was overwhelmed, and they needed someone with institutional knowledge of the facility's historical performance patterns. The email ended with a sentence that felt like vindication, wrapped in corporate desperation. We understand the circumstances of your departure were difficult. We're prepared to discuss consulting arrangements that reflect your expertise and availability. I let it sit for 4 days, let them sweat. Let Ethan scramble through documentation he didn't understand, looking for patterns he'd never learned to see. When I finally responded, I kept it professional, cold, transactional. I'm available for consulting at $450 per hour with a 40-hour minimum commitment. Payment in advance. I'll review your contamination data and provide root cause analysis. If you want me on site, the rate is $650 per hour plus expenses. Let me know if you'd like to proceed. Victor responded in 11 minutes. Agreed to everything. Wired $18,000 to my business account before end of day. I showed up Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Walked through the same employee entrance I'd used for 15 years. Signed in as a consultant. Got a visitor badge instead of the permanent one they'd taken when they walked me out. Ethan was waiting in the conference room. Looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. Had that desperate edge people get when they're drowning. And finally realized nobody's coming to save them. Connor, thanks for coming. We've been trying to figure this out, but the contamination source isn't making sense. Nexaqual flagged some behavioral changes in the environmental monitoring team 2 weeks before the event, but we couldn't interpret what it meant. I sat down, opened my laptop, pulled up the data they'd sent. Took me 17 minutes to find it. You've got a maintenance issue with the HVAC system in Zone 3. The supply air diffuser is partially blocked. Probably happened during a filter change. It's creating uneven airflow that's pulling particles from the corridor into the clean room. Your environmental monitoring team noticed it. Started sampling more frequently. That's the behavioral change Nexaqual caught. They knew something was wrong, but didn't have the vocabulary to explain it in a way that triggered formal investigation. Ethan stared at me. How did you get that from the data? Because I know this facility. I know that when Environmental Monitoring Tech 2 starts doing extra samples on Tuesday afternoons, it means she's seeing something that bothers her, but can't prove yet. I know that Zone 3's diffuser gets partially blocked every time maintenance changes filters, because they don't fully secure the mounting clips. I know all of this because I spent 15 years learning how this building breathes. You spent nearly 2 years trying to replace that knowledge with dashboards. He didn't argue, just sat there looking like someone who'd finally realized he was holding a job he was never qualified for. Victor walked in 20 minutes later, saw me sitting there with Ethan looking defeated, and the root cause analysis already written. Connor, appreciate you coming in on short notice. You're paying me well enough to appreciate it? Right. Well, we've reviewed your analysis and it's consistent with what our maintenance records show. We're implementing your recommendations immediately. Good. He shifted uncomfortably. The way people do when they're about to ask for something they know they don't deserve. We'd like to discuss bringing you back. Full-time. Senior Director of Quality Systems. Significant salary increase, full benefits. Whatever you need. I looked at him. Let the silence stretch. No. Connor, I understand there's history here, but history. That's what you're calling it. You fired me while my son was in cancer treatment. Told me the company wasn't responsible for my personal situation. Replaced me with someone who spent nearly 2 years taking credit for systems I built while making you dependent on software I created because he couldn't do the actual job. And now you want me to come back because he failed and you're desperate. That's not history, Victor. That's consequences. Victor's jaw tightened. We made a mistake. I'm trying to correct it. You made a choice. Choices don't get corrected. They get lived with. You chose Ethan over me. You chose cost savings over institutional knowledge. You chose to blow up something that worked because it didn't look innovative enough for your board presentations. Now you get to live with that choice. Ethan finally spoke up. Voice quiet, defeated. I'm in over my head. I know that. I've known it for a while. I thought I could learn fast enough, but this job requires knowledge I don't have and can't get from manuals. I looked at him. Kid finally figured it out. Took a contamination crisis and an FDA notification, but he got there. You're right. This job requires 15 years of watching how things break. You have an MBA and nearly 2 years of pretending dashboards are the same thing as expertise. They're not. Victor cut in. If you won't come back full-time, name your consulting rate. We need you. You already paid my rate. I gave you a root cause analysis. Fixed your immediate problem. Anything beyond that is a different conversation. What kind of conversation? I closed my laptop. Stood up. The kind where you acknowledge that Nexaqual only works because I built it with the knowledge you threw away. The kind where you admit that Ethan's entire tenure has been successful because my platform was catching his mistakes before they became disasters. The kind where you recognize that you're not hiring a consultant. You're renting expertise you used to own and decided you didn't need. Victor's face went carefully blank. The expression executives wear when they're processing something they don't want to admit. You built Nexaqual. I'm chief quality architect. It's on the company website. You never looked. Good grief. No, just institutional knowledge. The kind you eliminated when you walked me out. The kind Ethan tried to replace with PowerPoint. The kind that's now costing you $164,000 annually, plus emergency consulting fees because you made bad decisions and refused to admit it. Ethan looked like he wanted to disappear. Victor looked like he was calculating exactly how much this conversation was about to cost him. What do you want, Connor? Nothing. I already have what I want. You're paying me monthly fees for knowledge you threw away. You're dependent on a system I built. Every time Ethan got congratulated for quality metrics that only existed because of my work, I got a reminder that you made the stupidest personnel decision of your career. That's enough. I walked toward the door. Victor called after me. We can't keep operating like this. We need someone who actually understands this facility. Then hire someone. Train them. Invest 15 years in their development. Or keep paying me to maintain the systems you broke when you decided innovation meant getting rid of the person who kept you functional. Your choice. I left. Drove home. Cashed the $18,000 check. 2 weeks later, Kira forwarded me an email. Meridian had terminated Ethan's employment, effective immediately due to performance issues inconsistent with the requirements of the role. Corporate speak for, we finally admitted we hired the wrong person and it nearly destroyed us. They promoted someone from within, a quality director who'd been there 9 years. Someone who actually knew the facility. Someone who understood that pharmaceutical quality wasn't about dashboards and strategic vision. It was about preventing disasters through pattern recognition and institutional knowledge. Someone like I used to be. The best part? They kept paying Nexaqual's fees. She understood exactly what the platform was doing and why it worked. She'd been at the company when they fired me, seen how it played out. Now she was running the department I built while using software I created to maintain systems I'd established. Full circle. It's been 3 years and 2 months since they walked me out. Liam's been cancer-free for 23 months. Healthy, growing, playing soccer again. Hair grew back darker than before. Doctors call him their success story. Evelyn's back to full-time work. Bills went from catastrophic to manageable. We're not rich, but we're stable. Meridian's still paying every month. Contract renewed automatically last quarter. She requested 2 more expansions. They're deploying Nexaqual to their European manufacturing sites. Contract value hit $340,000 annually. My parents reached out 4 times over the years. I blocked their numbers, deleted the emails unread. They chose not to help their grandson during cancer treatment because they wanted to teach me a lesson. That choice was permanent. Tony's still around. Celebrated with me when Liam's scans came back clear. Helped me move into the new house last year. Never mentioned the money. Just showed up when it mattered. That's the difference between people who care and people who keep score. Victor never called back. Ethan's at a medical device company now. Smaller role, more appropriate for his skill level. Nexaqual's grown beyond Meridian. 17 pharmaceutical companies now. 2 more contracts pending. Kira's hiring. Building a real company out of something I started to survive. When clients ask how the platform predicts failures so accurately, Kira tells them it's proprietary algorithms. Technical enough to sound impressive. Vague enough to avoid explaining that it works because one guy spent 15 years learning how pharmaceutical facilities fail, then got fired for knowing too much. That's the best kind of revenge. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.